There are some events in history that we can't explain, even if we try our best. And some mysteries leave us with more questions than answers. The outbreak of cholera in Paris during 1832 is one such event. It claimed the lives of around 47,000 people. That's 16% of the entire population of the city. But it was also the time when a strange figure began to appear in the most unlikely of places. This tall man wore a crimson mask and long flowing cloak, and it seemed like he enjoyed watching people die. Now, obviously, this doesn't sound like the plot of a fun kids' movie. Instead, it sounds like the opening to a horror movie or perhaps an episode of an anthology series like American Horror Story. But this really happened. And while it may not have been what people thought at the time, it still makes for a terrifying story that has stood the test of time. But before we dive into this terrifying tale, be sure to hit that like button for more videos of spine-chilling historical mysteries. When talking about the outbreak of cholera, which caused devastating effects throughout Europe and America, the year 1832 is a pivotal point in time. The disease arrived in France through Italian immigrants who brought it with them after it swept through Naples. And it's estimated that around 400,000 people died from the disease across Europe and the U.S. during the summer of that year. Within just 2 months of its arrival in France, the disease was spreading rapidly throughout the capital of Paris. People were dropping dead left and right. Back then, doctors weren't quite sure what caused the disease, but they knew that it was being spread through contaminated water. And with poor sanitation systems and little access to clean water, it was almost impossible to avoid coming into contact with the bacteria. It wasn't until years later that Ignaz Semmelweis realized that the disease could also be transmitted by human hands after attending physicians would often move from autopsies to patient care without properly disinfecting themselves. During the outbreak, those who survived the initial infection were often cured with the use of mercury, which made things even worse for them because they would end up dying from mercury poisoning. There was no hope for anyone who came down with the disease. Hospitals were quickly overwhelmed and no treatment worked. Death was swift and merciless. But amid this chaos and despair, there were whispers among the survivors. They spoke of a strange man whose presence seemed to bring death wherever he went. The people called him the Red Masque. He was always dressed in a long dark coat and a hat that hid his face behind a red mask. But these details are rather insignificant compared to the terrible things he allegedly did. His first appearance was caught on camera in the form of a drawing by an artist named Jacques Identitat. The picture shows a man dressed in a black coat and a red mask walking between two men in night clothes. Another survivor described seeing him standing over a young woman who was lying in her bed and appeared to be sleeping. But the lady's brother told the man to leave her alone, and the stranger simply vanished. One witness claimed that he saw the man standing next to a recently deceased body, holding a silver stick. But when the man in question turned around, he saw nothing but a wall. The man had completely disappeared. Some witnesses said he was a ghost, while others claimed he was a devil who walked the earth. Of course, there's no way to verify any of these claims, so it is possible that they were only imagined by frightened and exhausted people who had seen too many loved ones die. However, there was another witness who said the man in the red mask was actually Dr. John Snow, one of the attending physicians at the hospital. Dr. Snow was working with victims of the disease and trying his best to find a cure. But he tragically lost his own daughter to cholera and fell gravely ill himself. Many people believe that this Dr. Snow was the mysterious man in the mask. However, this is highly unlikely because not only was he too sick to be wandering the streets, but he would have likely been wearing a white mask rather than a red one. This was because back then, white masks were used to protect against infection, and many doctors and surgeons wore them while performing autopsies and treating patients. Red, on the other hand, was used to signify danger and death. After the outbreak subsided, survivors began to wonder whether the deaths of their friends and family had anything to do with this man in the red mask. And when they heard stories of the mysterious man appearing in the rooms of people who were on their deathbed, they became terrified. Could he somehow sense when someone was close to death? Was he accelerating their demise with his presence? Or was he just standing there watching them die? As the whispers grew louder, so did fear and speculation. Some people said the man in the mask wasn't human at all. He was instead a demon who had come to claim the souls of the sick and dying. If this was true, then he would have been one of Satan's disciples who were given power over mortals. But there was another explanation. Dr. Louis Antoine Ranvier was a physician who lived in Paris at the time and treated cholera patients. While he didn't see the man in the red mask, he did notice something else that set him apart from the rest of the doctors. His colleagues had a distinct odor that came from working with the sick and dead. They smelled like decay. But the man in the mask didn't. So he must have had no connection to the disease. If this was true, then why did he keep showing up at the hospitals? Well, we may never know. But it is possible that he was merely curious about the disease and wanted to see what was happening firsthand. Perhaps he was a researcher who was studying the illness and documenting its effects. Or maybe he was just a nosy neighbor who couldn't help but peek into the sick rooms. Regardless, people still feared that he was bringing the disease to them by simply looking at them. Then again, how could a person smell like flowers and stand next to a dead body without getting sick? To the desperate and fearful survivors of the cholera epidemic, this man was a mystery and he only added to their pain and suffering. But there's one final piece to this chilling puzzle. When the epidemic finally ended, the city of Paris kept meticulous records of everything that had happened. And in the archives, there's a chilling autopsy report that reads, "The body of a man who was found in the street and taken to the morgue was examined. The deceased was dressed in a red woolen mask and a long black coat." The autopsy report stated that the man was probably around 35 years old. And although his clothes were torn, he looked well put together. When doctors examined his body, they couldn't find any organs. Instead, they found a hollow chest. The file was stamped with a single word, non-human, meaning not human. So was the Red Masque an alien who came from a different planet? Was he a spy sent by a foreign government to study the disease? Or was he a medical professional who had been infected by cholera and mutated into something else entirely? While we may never know the truth behind the Red Masque, his story serves as a reminder of just how terrifying the 19th century could be. Back then, people were dying from diseases that they couldn't understand and they had no idea what was causing those diseases or how to treat them. And when strange things started happening in the hospitals, it was easy for fear to take hold. In fact, it was fear that caused people to make false accusations against each other. Accusations that would result in arrests, trials, and even executions. For example, there were rumors that Jewish people were poisoning wells so that they could benefit from the outbreak. So it is no wonder that the Red Masque became a symbol of the terror that gripped Paris in 1832. Some people believed that he was a harbinger of death, while others thought that he was a monster who stalked the night. Regardless, his story has captured the imagination of people around the world for centuries. And it continues to inspire books, movies, and TV shows today. For example, there's a famous French novel called The Red Masque, which tells the story of a man who becomes obsessed with finding out the identity of a mysterious individual. And then there's a series of American novels called The Alienist, which follows a group of investigators as they try to catch a serial killer in 1896 New York City. These works of fiction show just how enduring the Red Masque story has been. So what do you think? Do you believe that the Red Masque was a human or something else entirely? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button for more videos of scary historical mysteries.